Hi everybody, I'm Kurt, owner of Extreme Audio in Manitowoc, Wisconsin. Today we're going to be putting in one of our Extreme Audio systems on this 2025 Street Glide Ultra. We're going to give you step-by-step instructions all the way through. Let's get started. First thing we're going to do is put one of the fender covers on to protect the fender. This will prevent you from dropping anything on it, or if you do drop something on it, it won't scratch the fender. First thing we're going to do is take the 60 amp fuse out. That's going to prevent us from getting any kind of codes or anything as we're unplugging different things throughout the bike. So to do that, we're going to remove the side saddlebag. And we're going to remove our side cover. This is just pressure fit, so you can just pull it off. And we're going to turn the ignition on. Once that's powered up, we're going to remove this little cover here and pull out this 60 amp fuse. That's going to prevent any codes or the alarm system going off when we're disconnecting the battery. All right, first thing we're going to do is remove the fairing. There's 6 screws that we're going to remove first, 3 on each side. The top one and the bottom are longer, and there's a shorter one in the middle. Next, we're going to remove our windshield. There's 4 screws. All these screws are T25. When you remove the windshield, take notice there's a bushing in there. Make sure that you don't lose that. And you're going to simply just pull up and the windshield will come off. Next, we're going to remove the 4 T25s. We're going to slide up this cover. One thing you want to take notice is you want to remove this before you remove this part, because there are tabs on here and they will break. Next, we're going to remove the vent. There's 1 T25 screw here. And then there's some pop pins, so you can simply pull it towards you on both sides. And you'll see there's these tabs that lock in place. Before we remove the last 2 screws, we're going to unplug the headlight. So we're going to reach down here and you're simply going to push in the tab and pull out the plug. That's your headlight plug. Next, we're going to remove these last 2 screws. Make sure you keep some pressure on the fairing, because it will fall off as soon as you get those released. So we're going to take the fairing off and we're going to set it aside for now. Next, we're going to remove the stock amplifier. When you're doing this, be careful of your GPS antenna. Once you got the 4 bolts out, you can simply slide this red tab back, push down, and release the plug. Next, we're going to remove our seat. We're going to remove the 2 T25 bolts. 1 is on this strap and then 1 in the back. Once the bolts are released, you can simply lift up on the back and slide the front out. Now we're going to remove our gas tank. There's 4 13mm bolts. There's 2 here, 2 underneath these black covers. But before we do that, we're going to release the vacuum lines for the gas tank. So we have 1 right here we're going to disconnect. Simply pull the tube out of the rubber boot. And there's 1 up front. We're going to do the same thing. Okay, we're going to unplug this 4-pin plug right here. Simply squeeze on the tab and pull it up. Next, we're going to release the fuel line. If you can see this silver column here, you're simply going to slide it up and release the fuel line. And you might get a few drops of gasoline. I like to keep a microfiber handy just to wipe it up. Next, we're going to take off the 4 bolts. One thing to keep in mind, there's a vacuum line that runs under the tank and has 2 clips. So you want to make sure you lift that up and slide it out before you pull the tank off. So next we're going to run our power wire in this channel right here. This is where all the wire runs through from the front to the battery. So we're going to simply cut these zip ties. And we're going to cut this tape. And then we'll simply remove the snaps here and pull the cover off. Next, we're going to run our power wire. We have an 8 gauge wire that's terminated for our amplifier. We're simply going to tuck it in here. Next, put the wiring cover back on. Next, we're going to take our speaker grills off and change the speakers. There's a T25 screw underneath, and it has 2 pop pins. So we'll take the screws out first. Then we're simply going to put a little bit of pressure, pull off the grill. Those are the 2 pop pins. To make things easier, we're going to take the speaker pods out of the bike. First thing we want to do is disconnect our GPS antenna. Simply push that little tab back and slide it out. Then we're going to remove the 5 T25 bolts holding in the pod. To get at this last bolt, we're going to remove the Skyline harness. That'll give us a little more access to the bolt. And then we'll want to disconnect our speaker plug down here. Now that we have our speaker pods out, we're going to remove the speakers by taking out these 4 T25 screws. And we're going to disconnect our speaker wires. Next, we're going to install our SS mid-bass driver. With these 2 tails, it's a direct plug and play. Next, we're going to install our SS tweeters in the grills. What you're going to do is line up your 4 screw holes, and these are tabs to zip tie your wires to. So what you're going to connect is the long wire to the tweeter. What I like to do is bend the tabs over before I slide these on. They do have locking tabs in there, so once you get it on, it's going to stay on. We bend the tabs to the side just to give it a little bit extra clearance for the speaker. I like to wrap the wire with a little bit of Tessa tape. It's just a fabric tape. That way you don't see any of the red speaker wire behind the grill. Once we got that done, we simply zip tie the wires to the tabs. Cut our zip ties off. And the other two tabs you can either leave on or you can simply snap them off. Next, we're going to install our crossover. Everything is plug and play, so we're going to take the output to the tweeter side. And then, since we're using it in the front fairing, we're going to clip on our Harley speaker plug, and basically this will just tee in, and that will give you the output to your tweeters. These tweeters do come with a ton of different adapters, whether you're doing lids, lowers, tour pack. It has all the adapters in to make anything work, and everything is plug and play. No need to cut or modify anything. Now that your speaker is installed, reattach the pod to your bike. So we're going to run our tweeter wire up through the top. Just going to snap that grill in place. And I'm going to throw the screw in quick. Next, we're going to connect our tweeters. We're going to disconnect the speaker plug. And then our harness will just tee right in. And then I typically mount the crossover right in here, and I'll run a zip tie, tie that in. Now we're going to hook up our power and ground wire. We're going to simply remove this cover by removing these two, sliding this forward. That'll allow us to take this cover off. Set that aside. We'll unsnap the BCM. Remove that, and then we're going to have another T25 screw right there. Take that out, set it aside. Now we're going to connect our ground and our positive. We're going to tuck our fuse holder down here. We're going to put our bracket back in. It holds the BCM. One T25 screw. Our BCM back in. Now we're gonna put the gas tank back on. You're gonna wanna make sure you get your vacuum line back in the channels. And we'll connect our vacuum lines back together. And we'll put our 4 bolts back in. I like to start all 4 of them before I tighten it down. And we're gonna put our rubber boots back on. Next, we're gonna hook our fuel line back up. Simply slide the collar and push it up. And we're gonna connect our controls over here. Just push it until you hear a little click. Next, we're gonna install our A to B plug. We are using the Volunteer Audio. This is definitely the best one on the market. They've done all the research, they've done all the work. There are others on the market, but they are not nearly what this is. We've actually partnered with them, and we have our own tune that we'll download onto this, which I'll show you in a minute. This is the mount that we developed that will actually bolt this A to B module onto the plate. And then this will bolt into the stock location, and then our amp will mount on top. So first we're gonna put the 2 screws in to hold the A to B module. Before we put our amp plate in, we're gonna reconnect the screen and the antenna, and we'll put our GPS antenna on after. With the A to B module, everything is plug and play. This will plug directly into your stock wiring and will plug directly into our amplifier. Now that we have the A to B module installed in the mounting plate, we're going to install our amplifier. We connect the RCAs and we heat shrink them together, plug in our speaker wire, and then we'll mount our amp right on the plate. I like to start by putting these 2 screws in first, and then you can slide the amp into place and tighten them up. Next, we're going to connect our power wire. And just make sure you hear the little clicks. And we're going to zip tie that up. All right, next we're gonna put the fairing back on. We're gonna tighten these 2 screws first. So we're gonna put the 3 screws back in on each side. Make sure you put the short one in the middle and the long one on the top and the bottom. Next, we're going to install our vent, which will snap back into place. And we have 1 screw that we're going to tighten, T25. Put our cover back on. and the 4 screws. Next, we're going to install the windshield. Simply slide it down and put your 4 screws in. Make sure that you have your gaskets in place. Next, we're going to put our seat back on the bike. And we're going to put our 2 T25 screws back in. Now that we have our seat back on and everything installed, we're going to put our 60 amp fuse back in. And we're going to put our side cover back on. Again, this just presses into place, it's pressure fit. Now that we have everything installed, we're going to download our tune onto the A to B module. First thing we're going to want to do is connect the right file to the USB. We have SS in here, so we have an SS tune. Then you're going to power up the bike and accessory by holding this button. Once it loads up, it'll ask you if you want to update the amplifier. Simply click update. Now that the radio is updated, we're going to set up our speaker. Hit the settings, go to sound, speaker setup, speaker configuration. We're going to use stage 2 front, stage 2 rear. All right, now we have everything installed. We have the SS system in here. Hopefully you can put it in your bike and you'll hear your music loud and clear at 80 miles an hour with the helmet on.